Welcome to What's Up Wednesday, everybody. Recently, my wife Melinda and I took our youngest son to New York City for his high school graduation trip. Our son Riley's always wanted to see New York, so we obliged him and we took him to New York. While we were in New York City, uh, a topic came to mind that I thought would be good for What's Up Wednesday, which is situational awareness. And it isn't something that we normally consider in the safety profession, but I think it's applicable. Now, when we were in New York City, we were right on the precipice of the World Cup, and we were staying near Times Square. There were yellow Brazil and red Morocco jerseys everywhere you went, and the streets were absolutely packed with people celebrating the World Cup. On top of that, the Knicks were on the precipice of winning their first NBA championship in 53 years, which they won while we were there on Saturday night. And later that night, luckily, we had turned in at the hotel and gone to bed. But later that night, a school bus was burned on 42nd Street, and it was just mass chaos. And I think throughout our trip, the word to use that described what New York City was like during that long weekend was absolute chaos. And we're not in New York City regularly, so we assume, and we did some research and identified that that was not the norm. But one of the things I was trying to teach my son is the importance of situational awareness. And I'll never forget a lesson that Jim Castaneda taught me once. Jim, I know you're watching out there. He said, when you're traveling someplace that is foreign to you, meaning a foreign country, another city, observe what the locals do and mirror what they do. And the reason behind that is that you look more natural, more normal, you don't stand out as much. And I remember to use the example of a town in Mexico where, for whatever reason, the locals didn't walk on the sidewalk, they walked on the dirt road, the street through town. And it may not have made sense, but Jim said that he mirrored what they were doing and basically blended right in. So it's really important. But I think we can teach our teams the importance of situational awareness, both in the workplace, but also especially when they're traveling. I think it's really, really critical. And to me, I believe some people have the innate ability to maybe be more detail oriented, maybe be able to observe and collect more information. But I do believe that situational awareness is learned. It's something that can be taught. So, when we kind of look at the topic of situational awareness, starting kind of with a definition, it's a continuous cycle of perceiving environmental cues, understanding their meaning, and predicting future events to make informed decisions. Now, there are kind of three known levels of situational awareness, which are perception, comprehension, and projection, level one, two, and three. So the first thing is we scan our environment, take in basic data using all of our senses, sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, etc. Um, the second thing we do is we try to interpret the significance of the information by combining it kind of with whatever knowledge we may possess and past experiences. And a lot of times, and you'll hear this over and over again, trust your gut. A lot of times, your gut may scream at you, but you tend to ignore it. And I would say that, I wouldn't rely entirely on your gut for situational awareness, but I think it does play a significant role. And then finally, level three, anticipate what could happen next based on the information you've collected. So, as an example, when we were in New York City, we observed a lot of people behaving in a manner that I wouldn't consider ordinary. There was a lot of celebration. There was a lot of wild behavior. There were police officers everywhere. You could tell that things were, on the brink of getting out of control. So we were able to observe that, collect that data, and as a response, we exited. We got away from the crowds. We got away from that particular area, Times Square, to avoid any potential conflict. I think that's really important is you need to act on that. And whether you go through active shooter training or situational awareness specific training, you'll learn that making yourself small and exiting quickly without being noticed can be really key in a bad situation. So the kind of the four pillars of situational awareness, they're considered the ODAA cycle. One is observation, which we talked about, which is continually kind of monitoring the surroundings, body language of other people, and environmental changes that might be occurring. The second is orienting yourself, processing that information to determine the context and then be able to prioritize any kind of potential threat. Finally, make a decision, weigh all that information, identify kind of the safest, most effective course of action for you to take. And again, oftentimes it is quietly exiting, getting out of there. And that is the action piece, which is executing whatever that chosen response is. And I think it's so critical. When we watch the news, we see these shootings, we see acts of violence, we see protests, we see these events, and oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes there are warning signs. And for somebody who is paying attention and is collecting that information and processing it, they're more likely to say, hey, you know what? I should get out of here right now. And the best thing I can do is remove myself from the situation to avoid what could occur. So think a little bit about that. This is something that maybe isn't taught normally or regularly, but it's something I think everybody needs to learn about. And if they don't have naturally good situational awareness, it's important we teach them, especially if they're our employees and they're traveling on our behalf, or they're going out into situations where there could be hazards that are external. So think a little bit about that. Hopefully that's helpful. And I know it was a great opportunity for me to teach my son just some of the basic concepts so that he could start to gather information. I taught him to navigate the city. And at the end of the trip, he was getting us back to our hotel. He figured it out. So it was pretty cool to be able to teach him those things. So again, we'll see you next Wednesday. Thank you.